Sundays are always powerful here. We go right to work on Monday, and then we have to come in here. So let me move forward now. We have started to go through this whole transition, and I've got to be real specific tonight because tonight it's going to be one of those times. Thank you in advance to all of you who appreciate, how can I say this, the honesty from the Word of God that we're trying to convey. We are raising next generation leaders. Now, people are very selfish sometimes. No, we can be very selfish sometimes when it comes to church subjects and topics. Oh, I don't have to go to that tonight because I don't have any children. And all of my children are grown and gone. But remember, before we started this, we asked God to help us to be disciples. And disciples, you want to have a broad area of things that you can talk about. Because you never know when God's going to use a moment for you to display some information from Him to somebody who's kind of given up. So this is really important. We are all comfortable with it. And if not, I'm going to make it as comfortable as possible. And Wednesday night, we'll have questions for you to ask. Or if you want to ask those questions, we're going to address those questions. And I guarantee you, when you walk out of here Wednesday night, you're going to be totally restored. And please, I don't care if a kid comes in, slumps in a chair, half asleep. Man, don't deny them from coming, y'all. This is not an adult meeting. This is a meeting really from those ages of like 12 to 19. But we know that the most important factor in a parent's life are their children. So it's going to be mixed. If they want to sit by you, okay, they want to sit by you. But we're not, what we won't allow, though, is for a child to sit like way in the back and feel excluded. I don't want to do any of that. So I want to explain all of that up front. And you're going to hear me give some very personal speeches. If we have 20 kids, we'll start with those 20. We are not in competition with anybody but the enemy. And we want to have our children back. We want them saved. We want them going to heaven. We want them looking forward to something. The model came from Jesus, who was sent as a boy, as a baby, to walk through some things so that we could have everlasting life. Yesterday, we started with the subject, U-turns allowed. What did that mean to us? That meant that you can be going in one direction for a long time, and it can look like your stuff is, to get even a little bit more common, your stuff is just jacked up. And then you can realize, as wonderful as it might seem, at some point, you can turn around. And I think, and I taught this message some years ago, not this message, I used this subject some years ago for a whole different type of subject. But then God started to lay on my heart, it's okay to remind people that they can turn around. Okay, you can turn around. You can always turn around. And the interesting thing about church and that we love, and that's knowing that we can tell people that, but can we direct them how? My GPS, I like the way she talks, and I've talked about her before. If I'm going the wrong way, she'll say, make a legal U-turn ahead. She tells you, don't turn just anywhere now. Make a legal U-turn. And I remember the first ticket that I ever got with I think it was my first, maybe my second, well, maybe my 10th. But anyway, I got a ticket one time. And the police pulled me over. And it was because I made a U-turn. And I couldn't imagine, I didn't think about it. And so I was driving and I made a U-turn and he pulled me over. It's so embarrassing. Lights all flashing, And he pulled me over, and I'll never forget, when he pulled me over, he got out and he said, okay, sir, you have a driver's license, da, da, da. And I said, what are you pulling me over for? What did I do? He said, you made a U-turn. I said, I know. And then he said, well, you weren't supposed to. And then I was explaining to him, I had made up in my mind that I was going to go straight, but then the sign said, no, U-turn. So I did. You're going to get to heaven one day and you're going to realize that the joy of the Lord was not your strength. You just messed up your joy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please don't encourage me. I'll have more. So where did we start? We started here. Now, how did we get to where we are? We started talking about raising boys. So y'all be real careful to go with me through a lot of these quick notes. I'm not going to stop for things, but how did we get here? We're going to have to know this. You're going to hear it again Wednesday. You got to go over and over and over. You got to repeat some things over and over and over with your young people. We came from ages 11 through 14. Where did we get our reference from? From Jesus, because he started going with his father to Jerusalem around age 12. We started hearing Jesus talk, and he got there in Jerusalem and going there for the Passover, and they lost Jesus, okay? They lost Jesus, and they went back to find him, and they found him in the temple, and so Jesus began to make his identity known as to who he was. Okay, you got me? A little bit? All right. So when we talk about this, what we learned about boys 11 through 14 is that they go through a whole bunch of other kind of stuff. So you'll get caught up on it. Then we got to ages 15 through 16, where we specifically are trying to help you to understand that. Now, if you say, man, you're going too fast, that's okay. Come back Wednesday night and we'll break it all the way down. So at 15 through 16, we learned that yesterday they want more money at this age. They're discovering what their talents are, and they're going through a whole lot of other stuff. Now, tonight, as we learn that they're starting to think about their futures, we start to now, and again, this is one of those times where we're having to find out, is this the kind of place that this needs to be discussed? Why not here? Why not in church? And why not at a Monday school? Why do we have to wait until you bring kids in because somebody's having problems? Then they feel embarrassed. You know how it feels to be embarrassed. And parents don't think they're embarrassing us. When we were smaller, our parents just did things. They didn't, well, even if they didn't care about embarrassing us. They were using those as teachable moments. So now, as we go through these lessons tonight, we're on the ages of 17 through 19. Let me talk to you a little bit. And I want to talk to those of you who have sons or grandsons or nephews or cousins or little neighbors, or some of you would even call yourself mentors or mentees or step-parents. And your boy's journey from manhood, from boyhood to manhood, is nothing short of a miracle. It is incredible. Now, you may hear me go into some areas tonight that might make you a little uncomfortable. Go ahead and be uncomfortable. It's okay. I'm your pastor. And if I'm not your pastor, I'll speak up for whoever your pastor is. And you got to remember, we're friends, okay? I like you, and you like me. And we have to develop that kind of trust to have these kinds of conversations. Sometimes at church, we want to keep certain things for certain things, and we say, well, some things shouldn't be public. And that's where our kids miss it. That's where they miss it. Because when Satan attacks us in these areas, he attacks us publicly. Okay, so as you already know, when they jump from that boyhood to manhood stage, it's in a hurry. It's pretty quick. In fact, most of his life, you've probably heard the phrase like, man, he's having some growth spurts. You'll hear things like that. And I keep having to buy him clothes and shoes because he's just growing so fast. And that really is what happens. Now we're here between 17 and 19, and we're again going to use Jesus as the model. So what was going on with Jesus between 17 and 19? None of us were there. How would we really know? Because we've been there. So we have to use the model that we've gone through to imagine that Jesus did, and then ask ourselves, how did he handle this? How did he handle it? Now, this may be one of those nights where, again, you may seem like you're being real shortcut on your amens and thank you, Jesuses. We got you. Okay? We got you. And we perish for the lack of what? Knowledge. When we don't know stuff, he gets us. And that's why sometimes I have a real big issue. I talk to people a lot of times about, I don't even know sometimes if honesty is what we want or if loyalty is what we want. Because one of the first things that happens when a person is growing in Christ and you have someone in your corner, the enemy will tell you, don't tell so-and-so, so-and-so. All of a sudden, now you're in the dark. One of the greatest lessons that I've learned since having surgery is that I need somebody in my blind spot. Serious. Because I've always been a quick move kind of guy. But I need someone in my blind spot. some of the greatest joys I've had is teaching people how to stand in the position that I stand in. They may not learn how to be the kind of leader, but can they stand in the position and understand what it means to lead people when you think you know it all until you're put on the spot. And so that fantastic thing is great at first when people are watching you. And then all of a sudden you realize people are not really watching you, they're depending on you. And so it goes from being almost a little famous and popular to being outright disappointed because you can't meet everybody's needs, but you have to stay in the role of a leader. And that's when the problem falls in our laps, and that's when it fell on Jesus. So now this boy is coming up, and this young man is getting a new body now. He's getting a new body. He's getting a new look. He's getting some muscle growth. And he's looking stronger, but if you listen to his mind, he still thinks like a baby, but he's starting to look like a man. And new hair is starting to come over his body. And then he's gonna get something that was really rough when we were growing up called zits, pimples. And he'll also develop, if he already has it, he'll start getting a strong attraction for the opposite sex. Now, I want to talk about this tonight because this is where we get silent. This is where we get sensitive. This is where we get our feelings hurt. This is where we leave. And this is where Satan thinks, if I can get them to deny this part. See, his goal has always been to keep us from being another generation. And so right about now, your boy is getting this unusual attraction for the opposite sex. And this is a fact of life that a lot of parents would rather avoid or deny. I don't want to talk about him being with no girls. Listen to me. The way things have changed in our society, I want boys to have girlfriends at 3 years old. I'm just going to tell you, I don't care. You can rebuke me if you need to. Amen. In the crib, like, little mama, you know, hanging on the baby beds, just looking. But that's because I'm going to go into detail and show that's a natural response built into him. And so Satan is saying, let's change that natural response so we can change his identity. We're talking about Jesus here. So the minute you get your mind warped, we're talking about Jesus. Jesus didn't have these kind of issues because he didn't have man blood in him. So don't try to wonder if Jesus was nasty. No, he wasn't. So with all these different awakenings, there are things coming on. And the bottom line is that your son's going to be very sensitive about these changes going on in his life. So my word to you tonight is to be patient. Empathize with this awkward little boy who is now becoming a young man, and it's going to be awkward. He's going to have some crazy emotions, so you got to give him a little privacy, okay? And never, ever, ever make fun of the progress that he's going through. If you do, he'll shut down, and a lot quicker than you imagine. And he'll shut down before you know it. He's like, I'm out of here. This is why boys need men in their lives. I'm not saying that you women can't raise men. You've raised all of us. As a matter of fact, if you were raised by a man, that's rare. But he needs men in his life. Because I'll go through some things here now, between now and Monday, that a sister you will not know. And you can stay with him every day of his life and you won't be able to recognize this. So we're going to talk about that. We've already talked about between the ages of 9 to 11. I think we said a little bit earlier that inside his body, his male hormones are becoming active. And when these hormones finish their work, he'll no longer think girls as, ooh, they're nasty, let me touch me. In fact, he'll probably find himself intrigued with girls, females, okay? Because between 9 and 11, he's just going to kind of get rid of that girls have cooties and the things that we used to say in school, and just start liking them. Then between the ages of 12 and 13, testosterone began to transform the shape of his body, and his muscles and chest and shoulders started to get a little bigger. You know, he's just kind of smell himself. He kind of looking in the mirror, you know, and I'll just let that go. And then between maybe the ages of 14 and 15, Facial hair, underarm hair, and all those things may start to develop. Pastor Rush, is this the place to talk about that? Maybe if you don't go to church, I don't know what y'all talk about, but we raise champions here, and you got to start talking about it all together. So he get a little, hair on his legs, and his voice gets a little deeper, just a little bit, and his voice may start to crack at this time. This is when he goes from being, I want you back, Michael Jackson, to, never mind. But his voice is going to change, and so that can be a little strange for him when he goes through that, and probably not the kind of thing that he'll ever want to talk about. And you don't know why his voice is changing, or why he used to be in the choir at the school, and he was in maybe the high part. Now he's kind of getting a little bit to the lower part, if he even wants to sing at all. But our jobs, and your job as a parent, is to assure this guy that these things are absolutely normal. But you wouldn't know they were normal until you were taught that. You may tell other people, I don't know what's going on with him. It's normal. It's normal. Who are we using for the model? Jesus. Okay? So the minute you think I'm getting off track, think of yourself, what would Jesus do? What was Jesus doing at this age? Think about it. And why are we using Jesus? Because we are Christians. We're Christians. Okay? So that's why we're using this model. So then we go, he's about, what did I say, 16 to 17, basically a little bit more body hair appears. He may start getting a little fake mustache or light mustache and all of that. And he's starting to take on a little bit of some of his adult features. All right, I'm going real fast through these. And then between ages 18 and 19, again, it's just all now kind of be based on different kind of chest hair and shavings and muscular builds in his body and all that. Now, as we get to this stage, at between 17 and 19, and I have to say this because we don't spend time with this guy right here. We don't spend time with him. He's the one that's usually just about out of here. All right? So what I want you to know is that he needs your guidance now more than your lectures. Now, listen to me. You're going to use me. He may not want to be referred to as your child, but you're going to always be his parent or his grandparent or his aunt or his uncle. And he's still a child. He's a child. And we're talking with this, between this stage, you need to know that he's going to need your guidance more than your lectures. We like to talk to him a long time, but now they're not really listening to us. They're watching us. They're looking at it. They're watching everything we do. They're watching our words. They're watching what we listen to. They're watching how we dress. They're watching how long we hold grudges against other people. They watch how we down talk people at church. And a lot of them have different opinions about church because they hear how we talk about people at church. And we can have a God that we have. And so that some things become a turnoff because they see that it's hard for us to mock Jesus, that Jesus we're talking about. And then they see how much we are going to criticize or condemn, or how much we compliment, how much we praise or rejoice and have fun. So they're watching us now, and that child needs guidance. They look to see if you're hiding the car that is supposed to be towed. They watch to see if you're trying to not pay the water bill or light bill. See, those are guidance things that we do. And between 17 and 19, they're kind of really watching that now. Okay? And they watch how we have conversations with the opposite sex. They watch how we form our opinions about things. And so all of these things are things that's going on in their minds between that age. Now here's another thing. They want you to talk to them and not talk at them. Because now we can talk in some big circles. And if we don't watch it, that becomes a strong, strong habit for dismounting a man once he's grown. And the reason I'm saying this to my sisters tonight, all over the world, wherever you're listening, is if you haven't learned, see, you can be in a relationship with somebody that can love you but not like being around you. Because when you talk at a man, you take a lot from him. So when you learn to talk to him, you talk to him. But then when you start talking at him, you're going to throw things that may be over his head. because you're talking at someone that you don't think is really listening to how damaging your words can be or how encouraging your words can be. And we're not going to probably talk about this at the Sister Come Forth meeting. I don't know about that, but right here we can do that. And at this point, there's a lot. I'm just going to keep it there, and we'll go into these areas when we have our safe space meeting. Now, what's going to be our model? This is still our model in Luke 2nd chapter, 52nd verse. This is the model, and this is going to be the model that we'll use. And it says in the 52nd verse, and Jesus did what? Increased. Now, we're going to be able to talk very maturely here in a minute, and mainly for our safe space meeting. And this is good for Monday school, because there are others of you that are listening to Monday school. You don't ever get the time to talk. You don't have time to read 50 million church pamphlets or books about raising teenagers. Things are so progressive. And the other part of this is they can read more than you. So when they can read more and get more information, teenagers know how to counter things that you're going to come with them. And sometimes you're asking questions that Siri will answer. And if you're not online, you don't know where that answer just came from. But now we're talking Jesus. He increased. This is positive. And he increased how? In wisdom. He got taller, and he found favor with God and man. So 3 areas here: wisdom, stature, and favor with God and man. These are the things that shows that these are the 3 things you can expect. Now, wisdom is important here because that comes from God, and he was from God. He wasn't from Joseph. He was raised by Joseph. So when he's out there talking to the doctors and lawyers, now he's talking stuff that at his age, this is around 12, remember. He's not supposed to know all these things. But now these are the things that we need to become aware of, because now your child, your son, your grandson is going to be expected to grow in wisdom. He's going to get taller. All these things we're saying are now straight scripture, straight biblically based. And he's going to be liked. He's going to have the favor of God in his life. And not just from God. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't care what man say about me. I'm just concerned about God. You and your super duper, I'm just with God as long as the God. God said you're going to have, that guy's got to have favor with man. Because people aren't going to come to God if they can't hear God from you. So we get on this super duper, I'm such a praise and worshiper and I love God. But don't nobody like you. You're not a likable person. Well, it don't matter if people don't like me. Well, you better take that up with God, because he said when you increase, you're going to have found favor in man. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to like you all the time. But why are we trying to always be the person that nobody likes to prove how spiritual we are? Listen, they're going to have to find God, and you're going to have to be the witness. And that's the message we're trying to convey to our teenagers right now. And this is a very confusing time. All right. I got a little excited on that. Let me get back down here. So let's go into this thing before we get out of here tonight. Unlike teenage girls, and I want to stay very stable. Unlike teenage girls, guys struggle a lot to express and process their moods. Girls gonna show you what's up. It's just most guys don't smack. I can't do the thing. You remember Michael, what's his name, Evans on Good Time? He always had that look. See, well, let's don't go into that. But most guys struggle to express their moods. It's just hard. And so too often when guys can't express their moods, they default to what we call physical outbursts. That's where that comes from. See, a sister can snap, snap, smack, roll her eyes, but a brother can bam, hit a wall. And if that wall is soft and not going to say anything, it'll be a woman. He'll hit a woman. Yeah, I told you this is. Why would he do that? Okay, why would he do that? Why would a guy be that way? Let's first go back a little bit in time. Okay, actually, all the way back to now. Stay with me. I'm going to go a little into some areas here. Let's go back to when you're about your son's 16th through 26th week of fetal development. Let's go way before you saw him. Let's go way back. And sometime during that stage, God did something to your son. God did something to your grandson. God did something to your nephew. God masculized his brain. Okay, so unlike girls, guys struggle to express their moods. And when a guy struggles to express his mood, he's gonna be outraged in some areas, and he might have some outbursts, and women sometimes tend to try to find explanations for that, and usually it's love and all that other stuff. But what's happening? Sometimes between the time this boy was 16 through 26 weeks old, God himself masculized a boy's brain with testosterone so that he could one day think like a man. That's not a movie. That's biblical. Okay, here we go. He was made to think like a man by what God put in him. So the result, simple. Testosterone, and we'll get a little bit more into it in a safe space, destroyed millions of fiber optics in him, like connections between his left brain speech and his right brain feelings or his emotions and his beliefs region. Testosterone destroyed that in a boy. And when that happened, it affected how he processes his mood. Way before you saw him. He's a boy before the sonogram may be revealed. I don't know. So let me break this down to you. And when we start understanding this man part of him, we don't have to get through this I felt like I was born a certain way kind of thing. This may not build a church, but it's going to build a kingdom. So several, and I'm going to go real slow with this because I do have critics, and I know you're recording, and you'll save this and play it back, and you'll call me for a debate on it, and I'm not going to answer. But I will discuss it intelligently because that's who I am. So several interesting things happened to a boy's fetal brain as he was being created in his mother's womb. The mother's androgens combined with testosterone from the baby's developing testicles is developed to form a frost-like chemical. And this frost-like chemical was a coating on the entire left hemisphere of the boy's brain. And the coating is God's way of masculinizing a boy. God determined that before you saw him. Consequently, men are able to focus in and give intense attention to anything, almost anything, without distraction. And he's going to need that when it's time to procreate. What? Dr. Donald M. Joy, professor of human development, Christian education in Asbury Theological Seminary, gives us a clear picture of this as we are struggling to try to figure out, will we have this competition that we have to think like a man. Now that's okay. But in order to think like a man, you're going to have a man's idea. Okay. A man can't nurse like a mother. You'll figure that out in 2 more weeks. So this is why most boys have a tougher time putting their thoughts and feelings into words. It's also why a lot of young males release emotions through intense, energetic bursts. They fly off at the handle. We do. Slam doors. Bam! Beat our fists into a wall. Lash out at our siblings. Then we shut down and retreat into some sort of focused activity, and now it's mainly like gaming. So we'll be angry, and then we'll go back and we'll be isolated. And you won't get that if you don't know how to think like a man. And tonight is probably the first time openly we've been able to talk about it. You may have several reasons as to why this could possibly be not true, but I'm going strictly by knowing our model is Jesus. And if God says you're a man, the first thing he did was give you the capacity to think like a man. Because if anybody ever calls you anything else, you're going to still be able to think like a man. And when it's time for you to act like a man acts, and you think like a man thinks, there will be some things that will seem totally unnatural for you to act because you don't think like that. Which is why the first thing the enemy does is try to affect your mind, so that you can't live out God's purpose for your life. And to a man, one of the most unattractive things about you, regardless of how cute you are, is when you act like a man while being a woman. Because there are certain words and ways that men think that are unattractive to him in the opposite thing. Now maybe you say, I don't care about how men. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. But sometimes instead of trying to lose your this weight and lose your that weight and be more, maybe you should think, maybe I can lose my process of trying to think like a man. Thank you, brother. So now you got this testosterone-charged boy. And he's in another stage of his life now. So your thought is, what am I going to do as a parent? Man, this kid has gone from wanting to sit in my lap to now wanting to hit a wall. And then he's in his room all the time and he's by himself. So he's charged with testosterone. This is this high octane teen boy that God specifically gave you. He is charged like your cell phone. And now he's beginning to think like a man. Are we still here? Okay. Now, if you have to leave, I want y'all to leave your offering. Okay. And what he desperately needs now from you and from all of us are some real clear parameters of right and wrong behavior. He's thinking like a man, but he needs someone to set these up. You know, on the freeway, they have those little walls in the middle to separate one side of, left and right, medians. Yeah, they have those brick walls now. They used to not be there. So the reason those walls are there is not to kill anybody, but it's to cause the car from going in the other lane. And they're designed to flip the car, in case you never knew that. Now, don't go try it. Just believe me. And it's best to flip the car to keep it on this side than to let it go on the other side and possibly kill someone else also. So a boy needs those clear walls that can help flip him. Your son needs to learn from you, from me, our sons. I'm going to pretend I have a son. I'm going to speak like one of us. So our sons need to learn from us appropriate ways of processing these emotions and working through his struggles. He can't keep going around just hitting people in the face and scratching ladies and beating up people. He can't do that. But at the same time, he should never be forced to express himself in a way that's unnatural for him by making him dummy down his masculinity. God put it in there. I think this has got to be probably the quietest message I've ever in my whole. I might buy some amens in a minute. But that's just where we are. We got to create this safe space without anyone feeling attacked, without anyone feeling charged. Now, let's see if we can give some kind of a overview of all of these before we go out of here so that Wednesday we can have the safe space. So let's see how we can stay connected as your boy goes through these rough waters of adolescence. Jesus is going to be crucified soon, but he's gone through a lot already that most people can't identify with. As a teenage boy, he has encountered a lot. How can we help him? If he goes through this phase, and not if, but when he does, let him retreat to his cave. Every teenage boy has a cave. I'm not asking you to go through the house tonight and look for it. Okay. What this means is guys need time alone in order to sort through a problem. Give him some space. Okay? They need time alone. Teenage boys need this time alone. Now, this message could be good tonight, and then by another month or two, you'll forget all about it. And that's why we're here as a church. You'll have to have some reminders, because this won't seem like your boy right away. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's like, what happened to him? What happened to him? He's following that clock. It's not gonna look the same at 1 o'clock as it is at 5:30 in his life, as it is at 10:30, as it is at the next morning. It's just that clock. He's gonna retreat and let him have some space. The next thing, let him talk when he's ready. And what you want to do is constantly communicate to him that you're available to lend an ear when he's ready to talk. And sister and other brother, you can't keep running all the conversations. Put yourself on the clock and realize, hello, and I'm going to talk to you. How much time are you talking? And how much time is he not talking? When he's available to talk, you got to find a magic button that's a shut-off button. And don't do it sarcastically. Well, the pastor said, don't say nothing. He's not stupid. You're just kind of belittling him now. And because he doesn't talk doesn't mean that he doesn't want to talk. He may not be able to find the words to say to you because you always have an answer to things that he really just wants you to hear. He doesn't always want a solution because he's not finished processing yet. You came to him in round 3. He's still got 12 more rounds to go. And it hurts a little bit different in round 12 than it does in round 3. Because you said, I just asked him last week or 2 months ago or something, and he said he was all right. That was round 2. Round 2, you're still trying to size up your opponent. That's why you see boxers doing this. Round 12, you're backing up because you've been hit a few times. So you may come to him in round 12 and said, I asked you last month, I asked you last week, because when you came to me, I was just in 2 and I had the energy. I was in my cave, and now I'm kind of sticking my head out because I really need some help. But I don't need the scorn. I don't need to feel like I'm no good because I have no answers. I'm just trying to show you how he thinks like a man. I don't want you to start acting like you think like a man. That's a movie. So when he's going through this, what else do we know? Got to let him open up at his own pace. Now, I'm not talking about raising a thug. I'm talking about raising a savior. Now, you have your own way of handling your children, and hey. But you might need to act like, now listen, there could be tons of people 100 million people that could disagree with this. 100 million people disagree with Jesus, and they still do. But let him open up at his own pace. What do I mean by this? Don't try to force him to cough up every detail. Sometimes, everybody, men shut down because they're not ready for your attack. Because when he can't come up with every detail, you know why he likes to hit punching bags? Because they don't hit back. They just absorb the punch. He hurts himself probably more hitting that bag than the bag, because the bag can't feel. So sometimes we want the guy to cough up every detail. So he's going to shut down until he has every single answer that you could possibly ask him. And if you're not a man, you probably don't know all those questions. He can't figure out why you have a cycle and he doesn't. Now, I just threw that out there just to let you see how different testosterones are from hormone changes. And sometimes it's like, well, you didn't say anything. Well, because every time I talk to you, you need to know too many details that I haven't processed yet. And until I went to church, I didn't even realize God masculinized me. I didn't know that God had already put this in for me so I can think like this. And that's why God chose me to bear this burden, because God already strengthened me so that I would know the right answers when I got in a jam. And now I don't have the answers because I don't need answers. I need wisdom. Because if you want him to have every detail, sister and brother and others and us, that's going to cause him to shut down even more. Before you know it, you got a full-grown, non-talking mute. because you're smarter, you got better answers, you're more articulate, but you're not him. And that's for us men to know, for each other. And the last thing, make sure his batteries work. No, I let it wait too long. Okay. No, it's not that kind of hit the back of it. See what I'm talking about? Think like a man. Put it down. Okay, the last one is let him know that his feelings are safe with you. There's a lot that goes on when a guy decides to open up, and then he opens up, and then he regrets that he opened up to you. Let him know that his feelings are safe with you. Our meeting Wednesday night, and those of you who are here for Monday school tonight, it's again like a little commercial into where we're going, because we have to leave a generation of leaders behind. But they got to know that there's a safe space. This has to be a safe place. When he stands up to want to talk about the Lord in his life, and it doesn't start out with giving honor to God, who's the head of my life, hey, he may not know that process right now. But he's got to know that his feelings, whatever they are, they're safe with you. And this last step right here, that takes a lot of patience. A lot of patience. That doesn't happen, y'all, just because you want it to. It takes a lot of patience, because what he hears is when you share what he thinks is private with someone else out loud, or is not taken serious. It takes a lot of patience to do that. Because most of the time, not that you're trying to tell everybody about whatever his issues are, you're really looking for guidance. You're really looking for guidance. And sometimes you might say, hey, I have this issue with my little boy, Tyrone or Battery, whatever his name is. And so you're really seeking help. But when he hears that, remember, his process is different. You're thinking like a mom. You're thinking like a grandparent. You're thinking like a cousin. But he's thinking like a man. And he could be going through a whole different stage. It's this whole stage of being patient is nurtured by you through an attitude of acceptance. An attitude of acceptance. You may wonder why sometimes he doesn't tell you, even as he is older, what was hurting him, what was wrong. Because now he's been maybe fussed at more about not going to the doctor instead of sympathized about why he's hurting. So he's coming up with the second part of the answer, why he didn't go to the doctor, why he didn't take his medicine, why he didn't get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and drink the juice, instead of, are you all right? Know that I'm trying to understand that you, and so then he clams up, he shuts down, he draws back. And he starts that between the ages of 12 and 19. And he doesn't get any better at 70. It's a process. And it starts with somebody not having the knowledge at this stage right here. I grew up around my brother. I grew up around 5 brothers, but you never were a man. So you think like a sister. You think like a mother. You think like a grandmother. You think like an aunt. But he thinks like a man. That's biblical. That wasn't me. So you and God got to have these big fusses tonight, because the enemy loves when we act like we know everything and we no longer have to seek God. And Siri wasn't there yet. And Google wasn't there. What's her other name? Alexis, whatever, whoever they were. Remember, God is anointing us with wisdom, stature, and favor. Okay. Now, how a teen reacts to his body changing, and his thoughts is a journey, and it's a journey into manhood, everybody, and it depends on the reactions of his family and friends, and it depends on his own personality. However his family and friends respond and react to him, that's gonna be key. So if your son, if your grandson, if your nephew, if your cousin, remember I'm trying to get all these male figures. Please, when I say son, I don't want, see, I've got to be careful when I say son. It's because I'm talking about male, okay, teenage males. And we're gonna go male and female a little bit maybe Wednesday night, but if he knows what to expect, and if you've encouraged him to feel comfortable about these changes in the way that he looks, in the way that he feels, he will probably take puberty in stride. You females, y'all got it made, see, because y'all can sit down and talk to girls and say, look, by the time you're 14, 15, something's going to happen. One day you'll wake up and you'll have this wonderful surprise. And it depends on how you and your daughter talk about that wonderful surprise that kind of qualifies her as a woman ready to bear children. See, that's a speech you can have. And so if you talk to her and she wakes up one morning or she's in school one day and this change has happened in her body, she's very aware because somebody talked to her about it. But men don't have that talk because we don't know when that is. Okay, some of y'all looking at me because I said 15 or 16. Let's go back to 9 then, because kids are different now, you know, and things. And so, but to have that child in a safe environment is wonderful. But to have that child aware because we've expressed it in a safe space like church is even more wonderful. And this is not some conference we're coming into. It's not some thing we're asking you to pay for. No. It's an anointed place that God has given us. And so now we kind of have to act like we don't have all these emotions and we don't, and I'm just going to ask you to come and when you come to church, you know, he's learning how to behave in church because that's where you go. But that doesn't mean that this is the only place that he is. So everything about loving God or praising God or praying and talking, that all happens here. Why here? Because that's the model that Joseph had to lead Jesus with. Why do we have to bring him to church? Because that's our model, y'all. That's our model. And Jesus started working. Get it? He had a job. And he had strength. And he had the ability to work. So here's a way to help your teenager. Try walking in his shoes. Take a moment, I'm going to close with this, to consider what life was like for you as a teenager. I did that. I went back and I started thinking, wow. And I remembered, and I said this to you guys some years ago, when my grandson first mentioned, Pappy, I think I want to preach. Man, I just started crying. Because I remembered, but see, I can give him advice now. But I remembered having to be this kid who was wanting to do the God thing. And so I'm always wanting to do the God thing, but I always had these devil moves. Amen. Because I wanted to teach people right, but wrong was so much more fun. Amen. I didn't ever cuss, but I knew how to. And I was just waiting on that opening. But I wasn't educated in cussing, so I couldn't put sentences together like some of the kids, you know. And I'm just saying because I was still a boy with a mission in my life, but I had to be a boy and without having flaws and Oh man, everybody could be in class fussing, but if Rickie fuss, you supposed to be a preacher. I am a preacher. So let me turn over some tables right quick, Negroes, and so I gotta, peace be still or whatever I was having to do. So I know that when that comes forth, there's some direction that has to happen. So just take a moment and think about it. How was your life as a teenager? Maybe you had Christian parents, and maybe y'all went to church every week and all of that good stuff, but maybe it was rough for you. Maybe you were a runaway. Maybe like Jesus, you ditched your parents. Think about this in your life again as you put what physical development did you find an embarrassment as a boy or as a girl? I'm just trying to get you to walk in his shoes. What was embarrassing to you? Were you fat? Were you skinny? Were you light? Were you dark? Were you straight-haired? Were you nappy-headed? Were you ashy? Were you acne? Were you bow-legged? Did you wear glasses? Did you have braces? Wow, think about that. Go back and just think about that. Did the boys laugh at your legs? Did the girls make fun of you because you couldn't play football or couldn't play sports? Think of all the things that you navigated being embarrassed. And what if you didn't have someone there like a Joseph or a Jesus or a person to walk you through that while you had these thoughts? And so you weren't what everybody thought a boy should be, but you hadn't been taught why you think like a man while walking like a boy, so you grew up too fast and somebody called you sexy, which was good, but in reality, you were just an overgrown, ignorant guy who would grow into being a man one day if the right men structured your patterns. But it was very embarrassing. How'd you feel about that? Just think about it for a minute, okay? And do you think your parents knew what was always bothering you? Mine didn't. Matter of fact, some of you were brought up in homes where you don't talk. Don't talk back. And talk back means you couldn't talk up. And so now kids are speaking up without any thought process of respect in a little bit. And so now we're having to go back. Okay, we got to get ahead of the game because they're used to talking to people that they don't know. And I'm not used to feeding people and they talk to me like they don't know who I am. Process is a little different now. Did your parents ever discuss that with you? Did y'all have those kinds of conversations? Did they ever just sit down and say, let's talk about why you hit that wall? Well, first of all, I don't think I ever hit a wall, and if I did, it was like real quiet. But what kind of involvement would you have liked to have had with your parents? These are things I want us to kind of think about. Okay? What kind of involvement would you have liked to have had with them? Oh, I had great parents. I had a wonderful mom, wonderful dad. Great. But what kind of involvement would you have liked to have? I'm just asking you these questions because I want you to kind of, maybe in your mind, think about walking in his shoes. Walking in his shoes. My stepdad, who I grew up with, irritated me to no end because I wanted to always have a perfect afro, and he would always grab my hair. Man, and I could do nothing because I was a preacher and because I'd rather have fingerprints in my hair than holes in my head. But he, to this day, he's dead and gone with the Lord. But he never knew that bothered me because I was not allowed to express my frustration. I wasn't allowed to show my disdain and disrespect because sometimes we just don't know how they are. And I didn't have options about how I wanted to get my hair cut. Cut his hair off, give him a part. That was it. And when I became older, of course, making my own money, I was able to make those decisions. So I said close twice, and now. But you got to be sensitive to the changes that are going on in his life. This is a safe space we got to make here at IBOC now, y'all. This is it. Some people come with a ton of activities to do, and let's take them to this and let's take them to that. Let's take them to God right quick. Let's because they can do a lot of other things, and we don't have problems with that. So as we've talked earlier, let's don't make fun of any of their physical developments. Let's don't make fun of their height or their weight. They get enough of that. They really, really are. No one ever knew how hurt I was always being called the short black guy, because I was such a leader that I had enough kids probably jealous of me always being the one that the teacher liked and that was trying to do the right thing, that whenever they took a shot, they took a shot. And of course I would say, sticks and stones may break my bone, but words could never hurt me. I was lying real early. Words were hurting me bad. They were. So bad that when I first started making a little money, the first thing I bought was something called esoterica. It make your skin light, because I thought, I'm not going to be black like this for a long time. And, well, that didn't work, y'all can tell. But those words hurt because they found words to say that. They found words to put to that. And sometimes we don't know that a child is going through weight changes and all. And again, he's not going to tell you that. He's going to lock that stuff up, and he's going to, Don't try to motivate your son through sarcasm and ridicule, because he gets that. He gets it. And once he gets that early, he'll detect that later in life. And most females won't get a chance with him, because the sarcasm that comes here, he becomes a master and a PhD graduate of sarcasm, which to me was one of the greatest lessons that I had. That was a huge flaw, being sarcastic. Oh, I could be sarcastic and still can be. Yeah. That's not cute. It's not good, but it's my shield. So you got to motivate him, but try not to be sarcastic. So just do your best and try to reduce, how can I say this? Try to reduce the importance that boys or teens place on their bodies for self-esteem, because if he's not confident and he's not confident in his body, the first person that comes along, male or female, that gives him an oversized sense of sexuality or importance or being cool, then he or she will start doing anything for money, because it all goes back to the attention that they get on their bodies. Okay? Now remember, it may not be important to you, but if you think like a man, now he's looking at that, and everything about his body calls him to want to display that. Why do you think they have mirrors in gyms? Why would you need a mirror in a gym? Why would you need a mirror in a gym? Why would you need a mirror in a gym? Because when you get through, you want to see what it looked like. Because that's important. So our culture pays a lot more attention to people's physical appearance and not enough to importance to their skills or their talents. But the physical appearance, man, if you're in that, that's there. That's there. And the greatest picture we can take now is a selfie. And the greatest filter is a filter that can cause you to Photoshop your own face. You take a picture of yourself and you never, ever, ever, ever get help for your damaged skin, because all you need to do is erase it with a filter. And so you don't really know that something's damaged, because you just block it out, because our culture puts a lot on that. And I'm saying this tonight because I want us to all be unified, even if we don't necessarily agree. Just come in line with us. And I want us to all realize that this next generation is heading down a direction. And I don't know where the kid is. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know if there'll be 10 or 20 kids in here, 15, 5. I don't know. But I'm going to totally commit that if God gives me another chance to walk in this direction, the way this ministry came forth, is to realize that all of us, all of them, all of us can make U-turns. And you allow more than one U-turn in life. Oh, I turned it around. But you may have to turn it around again in another direction. And I pray that everybody will come and be a part of what we're doing here. I've watched men, as we said in this church, we don't want to stand up here and be happy just when we're singing or excited just when we're singing. That ain't modeling. That's being on program. Anybody can show out. But how long will you show up? And so now the world is going to rest on his shoulders. And at cross time, he can't say, I've been through that as a kid. No, as a kid, he was getting ready for the cross. So was that the first time Jesus had to forgive somebody when he was dying? Probably not. Probably not. And so if we can't be God, let's get the wisdom of God. If we can't be Jesus, let's grow like Jesus. And let's grow in favor with God and with man, and know that we don't have to be ashamed to talk to him, because he knows we're going to flaw. He knows we're going to have these thoughts that we can't fix, but he knows he can handle it. Right? I pray to see all of you on Wednesday night that have young people that we want to reach and help them to at least decide to try. Don't be ashamed of how God has made you, but don't mistake God making you for the devil trying to produce you. He's not your producer. He's not the author or finisher of your faith. And he doesn't want you to have the real. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you to all of you that joined us here tonight online. We appreciate you. And I thank you for your